Okay, and here we go, guys. It's finally here. We have finally done it. It is here. No more needing to wait anymore. No more bated breath. We have the pregens, and we are starting off with our Aether, a character for the Shades of Dominion, Hugo. Hugo, the Chalon spy. Hugo's attributes, if we were to sum it up, he specializes in cybernetic surveillance. He is also a master of disguise, and he is, as you can clearly see, an artifact artificer. His background is pretty simple. He's a creation. When he was made, he was improved, and then he was liberated. Hugo's origin story is on one of the primary worlds that the Shade not originates from, but is centered in the realm of Orion. And on Orion, you have Marzak, who is the overlord of Orion, the Aether celestial world, if you were to put it that way. Hugo was a spy bird made by Marzak. These little automatons who would uh, just fly around and report and tattle on the various and spy on the various citizens. But the birds were liberated by a child genius named Chalon Chusk. Um, and this particular bird, named Hugo, embraced the shade and, as a consequence, gained self awareness, self sentience. And Hugo's mission is to gather all possible data on the Yaniv, who had attacked his home on Orion after Chalon had ousted Marzuk and uncovered the conspiracy between Marzuk and the Yaniv. There appeared to be a uh, a connection between Marzuk and the Yaniv, and so this is what Hugo is made, or not made. This is what Hugo has chosen to do, because he is sentient now. Over his adventures and creation, you could say, Hugo has developed the following skills. He's highly trained in acrobatics, anything involving information, history, religion, streetwise. Um, it's a- anything that has to do with gathering data. Um, he's going to be pretty proficient at. Um, he also knows how to stealth because he used to be far tinier and knows how to avoid. He knows how to take advantage of blind spots and whatnot. Of course, he's no how do you put it? He's not exactly lazy when it comes to things like intimidation and bluff. He's just not good at it. And of course, he's a robot, so he has no internal endurance. He has no healing skill, as purely he's not a biological being. So that's going to be incredibly difficult for him to pull off. So moving on forward, his shade vessel is the mirror mask and his dominions and attributes. Hugo was instrumental in the titanic battle for control between Marzuk and Chalon Chusk, the child genius depicted here, for reference, in case you were confused as to the inspiration of this tale. And by choosing freedom over the absolute greater good offered by Marzuk, Chalon was able to free all of the birds with Hugo's assistance, and Hugo then had made a pact with the Shade. Hugo has become an avatar of the Aether, with the knowledge and subtle illusions provided by Chalon Chusk and the entire neural network of the realm of Orion, which is a massive a world based on etherealness, data. It is very much a world where you program your own reality and are able to gatekeep who goes into what reality. And that was really the battle between Chalon and Marzuk, is liberating the access to those realities on the realm of Orion. Going on. Now, Shade Cantrips is something. shade cantrips is something we're going to be discussing for each of the shade mages because this is an aspect that gets underplayed as and something you can easily forget. Cantrips are for whenever a shade mage expends the shade to assist in non-shade skills tests like jumping, climbing, lying, stealing, etc. Uh, Cantrip expression varies wildly, and how you express your cantrips is an important part of your character development. So, Hugo, for example, is a self-aware artifact infused with the powers of illusion and artifice. So, for example, Hugo could use wires and spare cables that can lash out to assist in physical checks to jump, climb, or swim in dire need. Hugo is also equipped with scanners, sensors, and databases that can be accessed for any data checks on objects and life forms. This will also assist him in checks involving um, getting library points for scanning creatures on a world and being able to make more spell templates out of that creature. That is something that Hugo would be very proficient with. Projectors and imaging can create illusions and alter appearances that would assist him with social checks. He's able to manipulate his way in conversations by masquerading as the most pleasant thing to anyone to the person in question. So his spells. Now the spells are the spells we're just going to do a very brief synopsis of. For knowledge, this is the knowledge spells are the is going to be the attribute where he is able to build his artifacts, his own creatures, um his own kind of his his own creations is what I mean. The first one is the Spitterbird, and this is just an artifact that can fly, and you can also exhaust it, and it will deal one damage to any target. Very simple, very basic. That's why we call it the Spitterbird. It's a flying turret. Another, the other knowledge spell he has is called Deduction, and it basically allows him access to. He chooses a target, and he's able to know instinctively their abilities, their traits, their stat line, basically, if they have any aspects turned on, so on and so forth. But the most important one is the backup prototype. This is Hugo's clone spell, and this is what we would call a Shade Champion, where he's able to summon up this backup prototype, and it can role play uh, as Hugo. It is a perfect replica of Hugo at all times. So Hugo's able to send out a body double, and this is a body double with three wounds. It's not just a regular shade summon. So it's going to be able to stay in combat for longer. And when the combat ends, when the encounter ends, most shade summons will dissipate. This one will not. This is a shade, this is a champion. It will be able to travel with Hugo at all times. So Hugo has a backup prototype to further insulate and protect himself from the dangers of the outside world. And when it comes to illusions, he can cast on himself Bluff. Bluff is a spell that makes your environment think that you are the biggest threat at the moment. And other illusion spells include things like phasing. Phasing is also a spell and an aspect that you can twine into your spells. Phasing is basically, let's say you go to hit something, or something goes to hit you. You can get what's basically known in Warhammer an invul save. You roll a d6 on a 4 or higher. You take no damage. It phased right through you. Coat of Tricks, self-explanatory. This is a an enchanted coat or a spell that gives you the ability to change your appearance at any time until the end of your turn. So, and usually the cost of changing your appearance is free. You just got to remember to do it. So those are the spells of good old Hugo here. But then we get to his character aspects. This is where we get into Um, what really makes Hugo advanced and more specialized? He has the aspect of being a bookworm. He gets a +5 bonus to skill tests that involve reading any sort of text or, in essence, downloading any data. He has Shade Brain, which means whenever he scans and stores data and thereby gains library points in knowledge, which is what he would usually do when he's scanning for creatures and whatnot. He would be putting points in his knowledge attribute. He instead gains double those points instead. So not only is he able um, to acknowledge what he's seen, he's able to apply what he's seen because he's, well, a robot. He's a cybernetic AI construct. His uh, processing power is probably a lot greater than our own. But far more importantly, interrogation. Now, whenever Hugo's contraptions or artifacts, remember that spitter bird we were talking about, deals any damage, Hugo adds +1 to a spell battery dice and makes a spell battery roll. What this means is whenever he's in combat and that spitter bird pings a creature, he automatically makes a spell battery dice, but instead of rolling one battery dice, he rolls two. And then after two, he'll roll three. And as he's doing these rolls, he chooses the highest out of those rolls, and he's able to recharge any of his spells that he wants to. Let's say, for example, his champion died. Let's say his body doubled is gone, and he needs to recharge that spell. This will give him the ability to constantly keep that spell available if his champion, if his body double, doesn't make it. So he will constantly, and any other spell that he needs is going to be able to be recharged with this ability, with this character aspect. However, for the shade, for every character aspect, there is a consequence. We have shade afflictions. And the price of being stained with aether is you will always trade in secrets, lies, and half truths, feel more comfortable with objects more than persons, and may even learn to prefer machines to people. And this is something which Hugo fears more than anything else. It's real for him. He is a machine. He has affinity with fellow machines, but he also knows that he has to learn how to be human, for the lack of a better term. So his afflictions are as following: Hugo can never pass up the opportunity to learn something new. He must constantly scan. He must constantly be in that gathering AI mode. He's constantly building his own matrix, as it were. Hugo also, when you roleplay him, he cannot utilize flattery. He can only instead state observations. This is an important one because he is literally a robot. He is, and when we say shade afflictions, these are not suggestions. A shade affliction is a hard rule on your character that if you do not follow, the shade will punish you. It will hurt massively. And also, lastly, Hugo must read all literature about his current quest that crosses his path because, once again, he is Hugo. And getting to read that literature might be the problem. If Hugo knows that there is literature in the next room and in the next room is a big, big bad evil guy or a trap or whatever thing, Hugo must get there. So these are the afflictions of Hugo. Now his artifacts, his tools of the trade. One of the few necessary tools from his home, Hugo keeps his Quicksilver cape, which allows him the power of flight wherever he roams. Now, n- normally there is a flight spell. This is not, you don't, when he wears this cape, he does not have to cast that cost. He just has it. That is part of the wonderful part of playing Shades of Dominion. If you make an artifact and it has this aspect on it, you don't have to cast the spell. It's already on it. So Hugo, of course, because he's a bird, has the power of flight. because he's Bird. Now, also, Hugo's given a gift by Chalon Chus called the Matrix Ring. It is a tool that can shift Hugo to an alternate plane momentarily to restore Hugo to a previous state and setting after having sustained significant damage. Now, if you know your computer in any way, shape, or form, you understand the concept of a restore point. Um, but in player in game parlance, this is going to grant the wearer phasing. Anytime anyone makes an attack against Hugo or tries to damage him, he can invul save it, as it were. He also has a very special. It's a non-magical weapon. It's just nifty as fuck. It's a Swiss Army knife, as you will. It's called Hugo's Hyper V Combo Blade. Is a compact weapon with two separate profiles. When in compact form, it is a short sword profile using a stealth V insight roll that deals 1d3 damage. As you can see on the on the bottom, this is the compact version, and imagine the hilt at the top extended at least 3 or 4 times that length, and then you have the halberd profile, which is when it's extended. He uses an acrobatics v acrobatics roll that will deal 2d3 damage instead, and this is on Hugo's person pretty much at all times. Character advancement. Now, these are some tips and tricks about how to roleplay Hugo should you choose to pick up this character. Uh, the first thing that comes to mind is Hugo would be greatly interested in improving his clone champion, perfecting him, making him his own person, as it were, if he could. This would be Hugo's project. If he could create another person, another thing like himself, then it would make him more human. Now, also, another way to develop Hugo as a character is you would obviously continue to grow the archives of your Shade Brain and design as many new constructs as you possibly can based on the life forms that you come across on other worlds and realms. This is something also that Hugo would be deeply invested in learning all that he can about the world around him. He would be constantly scanning, constantly building, constantly trying to make something new and improved. Another way, obviously, that you're going to advance the character of Hugo is searching all leads that involve the Yaniv and potentially the conspiracy between the Yaniv and Marzuk, as it was awfully convenient during Chainlon's ascendancy that after Marzuk lost, that the Yaniv were able to invade. They were easily repelled, of course, but they still tried to invade. And that's the problem. That's why Hugo is out here doing the things that he does. Is he is on Chalon's errand as a Chalon spy, learning what he can about the realms at large and all the things that interconnect them. And that is it. That is the Aether character for the Shades of Dominion for our pre-gens. I hope you all enjoyed this. I enjoyed making them. This was fun, and if you found this fascinating, there's a link in the description that will link to the PDF for this specific character. So I hope you have fun. I hope you download it, and I hope you go throw some shade. Bye bye.